tonight. We are welcoming Yossi Moldawsky. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, hi.
Hi.
A pleasure being here. Good evening to all of you.
How was your day today?
As usual.
So what is usual in your typical day?
What is usual? Waking up, shouting at the kids. I have 4 kids, 12, 10, 6, and 4. Taking them, to school, to the kindergarten, doing some sports, then going to the office, the usual meeting startups, and then coming here.
I'm guessing you're someone who's very, very involved in sport activities, not just investment. So I guess you have some kind of sport you're doing like on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, I've been doing sports actively since I was a kid, but I don't do any specific sports, or I don't run marathons, ultra marathons, things like that. I do sports for fun and to enjoy. I play soccer once a week. I go to the gym twice. I swim. I ride bicycle. Sometimes I come to the office with my bicycle, riding my bicycle. So I try to do several things in order not to be, if I run now 40 kilometers, I will get bored very soon.
I read in one of the interviews a few years ago that you said that you're not doing that only for money, but you're doing that also for fun. What do you mean?
Investments?
Yeah, what you do, yeah.
The main task of ourselves as a VC or as a people that, we go to work in order, first of all, to get some money to be able to feed our kids in general. And the second, you want to enjoy. The same way I think entrepreneurs, he goes out for a journey. He wants to succeed at the end, and he should try to enjoy also along the way, because it might take years. And in my business, investing in very early startups, when you see the results, if the result is not that good and the company failed, you will see it maybe in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Usually the exits and the best companies, it can take a decade or more, so you have to have a lot of patience. And this is why you try also to enjoy from what you're doing, not only to try to make profit out of that.
When you say to enjoy, you mean enjoy the people you work with, or enjoy the technology or the products they do?
At the end of the day, it means enjoy working with the people you choose to work with. Of course, with your teammates, with other people that invest together with you in your company, and of course with the entrepreneurs that we invest in. It doesn't matter whether it will be good, bad, we will succeed, we will fail. You want to invest in people that you have chemistry with, that you think you will enjoy working. And I can tell you there are some startups that we lost all the money, and we remain great friends with the entrepreneurs.
You are still friends.
And we're still friends, and maybe next time they will come, we will still invest in their next idea. And there are, I can give you some other, I wouldn't give you, but there are some other examples of people that we invest that did great, and I'm not sure I want to meet them again.
So you were born in Israel, you were born in a place called Savion. How would you describe your childhood, and how did it affect your career?
My childhood, going to school, I enjoyed school. I had good grades. I used to do a lot of sports during and especially after school. And I played guitar, had a lot of friends.
And violin.
Okay. Yes, I had to play violin. If you want to hear the story, I wanted to play guitar since I was a small kid. And my father, who used to be a great businessman, offered me a deal. And he said, okay, you want to play guitar? I think you should start with a violin. I said, I don't like violin. And he said, okay, no problem. You will learn violin for 1 year. If you like it, you can continue. If you wouldn't like it, then we will buy you a guitar. Guess what? I learned violin for 1 year. I didn't like it. Maybe 4 years later, he bought me the guitar.
And your family, you have your background, or your family is basically coming from the diamond industry and some real estate as well. But you chose on a different career. Why was that?
Yeah, so my late father and his brothers were among the founding fathers of the diamond industry in Israel. Actually, they were among the first in Israel to manufacture and export diamonds. Diamonds used to be Israel's #1 import-export industry until recently where the high-tech surpassed it. And they started, by the way, back in 1948, so like the state of Israel. And when I was a kid, during holidays, during school vacations, I went with him to the office, to the factory. And when I finished the army, I started working from the ground at the factory, you know, polishing diamonds and everything. But at the end of the day, I found out that I'm not that excited about diamonds, and I'm much more excited about working with people, investing in people, doing business. So I ended up starting my own VC back in 1999. I think I was 26, 25 years old.
This is a Samurai.
This is Samurai Ventures. It was my first fund. Back then it was mainly internet and mobile. And actually we started investing in early stage startups.
We're going to get there in a moment.
Okay.
Okay. But besides of that, you are very much involved in sport in Israel, like chairman of few groups of football and basketball. And describe like why are you doing that and what exactly are you doing in that matter?
So first of all, as I mentioned, I'm a sports fanatic, enthusiastic. I do sport, I watch sport. My kids, my wife tells me that I made my kids addicted to watching and doing sports. She's probably right, but I like sports. This is on the one hand. On the other, I think I know some things about management, about business, and I tried and wanted to see if we can apply the knowledge and the experience and the common things that we do in business, try to take it and see if we can apply it in sports club in Israel. So I started with soccer. I was the chairman of a football club for 2 years. Then I was a board member in another football club. Then I was a board member in Apol Jerusalem Basketball Club, and currently I'm a board member in Maccabi Rishon LeZion Basketball Club. So I have some knowledge and experience about the industry.
How do you choose them? I mean, Rishon LeZion.
How do I choose them? You want the truth?
Why not?
I wasn't a fan of none of these teams before I joined, but I wanted to take a team that, you know, there are several reasons why people might come to own or to operate or to be an executive in a sports club. Some want publicity, some want to have maybe power, some have some interest in the city, in the area. I came because I wanted to enjoy it, and I wanted to demonstrate that maybe I can manage better than, or bring some new methods and measurements into this very old traditional, not professional, not in terms of sports. I don't know how to coach a team, but I think I know how to do marketing maybe better, maybe finance, maybe strategic thinking about the future, things like that. And I was looking for teams that weren't that big, that famous. I didn't look for the publicity or to have 10,000 spectators, you know, shouting at me, or the other way, cheering. So I looked for small clubs that I can really affect.
And was it working, like with Ramat HaSharon and Petach Tikva?
I think yes. You know, I didn't come there in order to make profit. The other way, I donated money, but
right.
I think that both, especially Ramat HaSharon, you know, I came and changed the whole management, even the logo, a lot of things, the website, the finance, people that were working there for years, and I thought they should be replaced. And a few years later, it was a second division team, and it became a first division team, and it had some nice achievements for a small team.
Right. So usually, I'm looking for things that the audience and me, we couldn't find on the internet when we was looking for Yossi Moldawsky. Can you share with us like 3 things that people don't know about you, or most of the people don't know about you?
3 things that people don't know about me. There are plenty of things, but things I want to share. The first, I don't drink coffee at all. I never drank even 1 cup of coffee.
Also Shachar.
Also
never
Shachar.
drank coffee before.
Wow. Amazing.
As well?
So if you want to chat, don't invite me to a cup of coffee, because I wouldn't. I can do, but hot chocolate, you know, tea, things like that. Squeezed orange juice is also okay. Second thing, I like trivia. And I participated in TV shows, in trivia TV shows when I was a kid. There was a TV show called Pitzuchim. I don't know if you remember. There was only 1 channel in Israel. Avri Gilad was the host, and I was one of the participants over there. And recently, in recent years, I participated in another TV show, again hosted by Avri Gilad. It's called אחד נגד 100, 1 against 100. Yeah, and actually the money that I won, I donated to one of the non-profit organizations I'm involved in. We'll talk about that probably.
Yeah. Shachar, you can give him our bank number afterwards for the donation from 1 against 100.
Yeah, wait, now I need to add another thing. So I talked about coffee, I talked about trivia. What would be the third thing that I will reveal?
And the violin was quite...
Okay, so we can take the violin as,
we can take the violin.
Thing. Okay.
Another nice story about you before, I mean, that was probably around when you started with Samurai, but then again, most of the people don't know, you were investing on franchising McDonald's in Geneva.
Not McDonald's, I wish McDonald's.
Oh, Domino's?
Domino's Pizza, yeah.
My fault.
I was, before and during the first years that I started investing in startups, I did a lot of real estate, I did some retail, I did some food. And actually Domino's Pizza, I was probably quite stupid and naive. And a good friend of mine went to Geneva. He was recruited, the first Israeli recruited by P&G, by Procter & Gamble, and the headquarters is located in Geneva. And then we talked on the phone, and he said, the pizza here is lousy, and it doesn't arrive on time. And I said, don't you have a Domino's Pizza over there? And he said, no. So I said, okay, I was 20-something years old. I said, okay, let's approach them. Either they will say, we are not interested in Domino's Pizza in Switzerland, or we are not interested in you, or they will tell me to come. And eventually I found myself operating Domino's Pizza stores in Switzerland. It might sound easy, but it's as difficult, if not more, than founding a startup. Because we took an American brand, Domino's Pizza, into Switzerland, Israeli guys into Switzerland. The company, by the way, was a Luxembourg company. And in Switzerland, you know, they talk different languages. They talk French, German, and Italian. So we had different menus, different employees, different websites. And it deals with retail, with real estate, with food, with scooters, with telephone, with internet. It was quite a complicated business, but I think
how many branches you had there?
We had like 10 or 11. At the beginning, it wasn't doing that good. We took a Swiss guy and we tried to teach him everything about Domino's Pizza, and then we found out that it would be better to take an Israeli guy who knows Domino's Pizza and let him learn about Switzerland. And several years later, down the road, we floated the company on the A market in London. And I think by then we had 10 or 11 branches. So I'm quite an expert in pizzas, for you to know. That's maybe
and after
the
you sold
thing.
it, you sold that afterwards, right? To Gaidamak's son?
Yeah, we floated and then we sold it to Sasha Gaidamak, the son of Gaidamak, when Gaidamak was still a big shot in Israel and in Europe. Yeah.
Okay, we have this very short session of yes/no questions. So I'm going to shoot you questions and you're going to answer me yes, no, very, very fast, please. So team or single entrepreneur?
Team.
Business plan, yes or no?
I need to answer in one question?
Try.
Business plan, yes. Not because we need it or not because somebody will know. If you write something, it doesn't mean almost anything. I just want to see how you think, to learn how you think, to learn the way that you try to calculate and some of your assumptions. Nobody knows if the business will sell 10,000 units, 100,000 units, or 1,000,000 units. But I want to understand the economics. If we sell this and that, what will probably happen or what might happen, and how much it will cost and how much time it will take. So it's important either for myself, but even more for the team, for the entrepreneurs themselves.
Crowdfunding, yes or no?
I just wrote something in the papers recently. In general, crowdfunding is a good thing. But I think it should be dealt...
That was yes?
I can, yes and no. I will tell you why. In general, yes. The answer is yes, and I think it's becoming more and more relevant and more popular, but there are some things that must be examined very thoroughly. we will probably talk about it, but the main thing is the team, the entrepreneurs, and it's very difficult to get a first-hand impression from reading something on the website and seeing a short video of 3 minutes. So it's something that is evolving, will evolve, will help the entrepreneurs, but we need to find the right guidelines and mechanism in order to do it, because if it will start the wrong way and people will lose money and lose their faith, it will stop. We need to make sure it's been dealt with the right regulations, with the right measurements.
Co-working spaces, yes or no?
For entrepreneurs, yes. For myself, personally, no.
Exit fast or grow?
You know, I've been around since '99 in this industry, so back then, like 10 years, more 15 years ago, people would say why we don't have an Israeli Nokia and things like that. Right. And then I used to say I prefer to have, I think it's more healthy to have an industry of a lot of startups, small ones, than having like 3 giants. And I still believe that this is the right thing. We see today more and more companies that are growing. The entrepreneurs have today more knowledge, they have more confidence, they can raise bigger amounts, which enables them to grow bigger companies. But still, there's nothing bad about an exit if you think you can move to the next stage and hand it to the hands of people that have the right network, the right connection, the right brand, the right funds that are needed to make it better. So exits are great, of course, as an investor, but I think also for the entrepreneurs.
China or the US?
The US is still the first go-to market for almost all the Israeli startups, and I think it will remain. In terms of raising, so going for the market there, it's still very, very difficult, complicated, risky, takes time, takes a lot of effort. Raising money from China is something that is becoming more popular, more relevant, and can bring a lot of value with it. So I would raise money if I can from China, but I will go first probably to the US or maybe to Europe before I go to China.
Patent, yes or no?
If you can add a patent, so it's better than not having a patent, but
don't wait for that.
Don't wait for the patent. Usually it's not that crucial. If you go to a pharma or to medical, it might be very relevant. For my space, which is ICT, it's less relevant.
Right. Go to market globally or locally?
Always globally. Nothing, almost waste of time to go locally. But I will tell you that if you go to the investor or to a client outside of Israel, a global one, if you would do a pilot in Israel and it will be a successful one, by the time you reach him, he will tell you, no, it's Israel, it's not relevant it doesn't show anything, it's not the same clients, it's not the same arena. If you don't do a pilot in Israel and you go to the States, they will tell you, why didn't you do a pilot in Israel? So anyhow, everything you will do, they will tell you that it's not relevant for them. So if it's not of an essence, I would skip a pilot in Israel, or I'd skip local and go global from the first day.
Vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
New York City or Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley. I assume you just recently read about the exits in New York. If you take, I think it was the last 5 or 10 years of exits in New York, it all sums up only to $11 billion, where in Israel just last year we had $15 billion. So New York is still behind. It also depends on the venture itself. If
right.
it's a new media venture, if it's a sports, if it's a venture, it's a fashion, it's an art, you should go to New York. If it's deep technology in the traditional industries, go to Silicon Valley.
New media, fashion, New York. Jerusalem or Tel Aviv?
Tel Aviv.
Basketball or football? Soccer.
Football, you mean soccer?
Soccer, yeah.
I like both, but if I need to choose soccer, because of, I'm not tall enough for basketball.
Okay, Toda. Thank you for this first page. So you started Plus Ventures on 2008, around 2008, and it was based actually on Samurai. We started speaking before. And how was it like these days? And do you have any like successful stories you can share with us right from the beginning?
Okay, so as mentioned, I started with Samurai back in 1999. We invested back then in 12 ventures. It was mobile and internet. Actually, most of the companies were sitting under our offices under one roof. You know, today it's called shared office space. It's called Accelerator. We did it actually without having the name for it, but that's what we did. And
so you had acceleration program actually on 1999.
Yeah, exactly, that's what we did.
Yeah.
We had all sorts of ventures, mainly young entrepreneurs that this was their first venture. They were mostly around my age then. And if you want one success story, we can talk about Travel Fusion. Not a lot of people heard about the company, but it's a company that was started by an Israeli entrepreneur operating from London. He didn't sit in the accelerator. Maybe that's the reason that he succeeded. And he was dealing with aggregation of content or data of travel at the beginning. And we actually arranged the round for him. He did a round. It was a bit above $1 million. We invested $300,000, I think, and we brought some friends to invest together with us. The company did only one round of investment ever. They started, it was going so-so, and they did some fine-tuning. They find the right offering. They find the first clients, and the first business model, and there they started getting some revenues, and then they started being profitable. And then they started distributing dividends, and a few years later down the road, they were sold to a giant company from China in the field of travel for $162 million.
That's amazing. Basically what you did during the road, you actually changed their business model. You changed the product from traveling services to data, right?
Yeah, the initial...
and this is important, they say, because they really change. They understand during the road that they have something else, which is much more relevant, right?
If you want to hear the story, when we invested, the entrepreneur came to us with an idea. Remember, it was back then in 1999. Let's make a website, B2C, for the users, a destination site that will help you get from point A to point B. Let's say you live in Stuttgart and you want to arrive to London. Then you want to travel the fastest way, the cheapest way, to have the best view. You are afraid to fly. You don't want to use a train. Doesn't matter. You put all the definitions and the criteria, and then you get the best answer for you. That was the beginning. It wasn't that successful, but during the way, they collected and gathered more and more data about the trains in Italy and the bus companies operating in France and low cost, of course, air companies. So along the way, they got a lot of data, and that became the main thing. And then the travel agencies started to use their engine to order, to book flights, to book train tickets, and so on and so forth, and this is the way that they make the money at the end of the day.
On 2001, you invested in, some people here know Tapuz Portal. Who knows Tapuz Portal, right? Some people know. And you invested, I think you told me $50,000 or $200,000?
$250,000 for 25% of the company.
Right, and then it really flourished. It was going very well, and then there was the crisis.
Yeah, there were crazy days, you know. They started 2 guys, and 1 year later they had 100 employees. It was back then, we believe, and they believe, that you need to create all the content. They had reporters for sports, for fashion, for everything, and you know, they were burning so much money. They had users. We were supposed to float the company at the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. I entered at a valuation of $1 million. 1.5 years later, we had the everything, the memorandum for placing the company in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange at a valuation of, I think it was $40 million. And then the market in the States collapsed in the NASDAQ, and then the float was postponed. You know, they never say it's canceled. And until today, we're still waiting. Maybe we will float the company. But a few years later, it was bought by somebody else, and they changed a bit the model, and now I think it's a nice company.
Yeah. On 2011, you opened Explore. And 2011 with together with 2B Angels. But why did you, I mean, you already had Samurai, and then you had Plus Ventures, and then you opened a new vehicle.
Yeah, so maybe just to put the right structure, we have Plus Ventures. Under Plus Ventures, we have one arm that we call Plus Express, which is investing up to $100,000. It's like being an angel, where you can come to us just with an idea, just with a piece of paper, and if we think it's interesting enough, and we want to put our foot at the door, then we invest literally within 72 hours. You wouldn't get the money with 72 hours, but you will get yes or no within 72 hours. Sometimes we think we need more money. It's not enough, $100,000. Then we can bring together with us more investors. So, for example, Meerkat, which is called today House Party, that's the way that we do the initial investment. 3 guys that came from the academy, from the Technion. I lecture about entrepreneurship. I made them there. They came to us. 2 days later, we gave them an okay. So that's an example.
Just stop here for a second, because you're very famous on that you know how to move very, very fast with angels. With like early stage entrepreneurs. How is that you can move really fast, like 24, 48, 72 hours, and you can invest the first seed money?
First of all, it's relatively a small amount. Second, you need to understand, today there is a lot of money looking for investments. So if you find something, you need to move fast, because if I identify that something is interesting, also the other investors can identify. And if I want to be the first, I need to move fast. And since it's relatively investing in a very, very early stage, there's also not a lot of due diligence to do, the evaluation process is short, and you invest more from your gut feeling and from what you think and how you vision the things, and especially if you think the entrepreneurs are capable, and you say, okay, maybe that wouldn't be the end product at the end of the day, but I want to partner with these guys because I believe in them, because I think they can deliver. So this is the first vehicle. The second vehicle, which is called the Explore.Dream, the full name is Explore.Dream.Discover. It's a licensed incubator with license from the government. Each project that enters into the incubator gets 2 million shekels, which is roughly $550,000, and we supply everything from office space, infrastructure, bookkeeping, legal, during the period of the incubation, which is between 18 to 24 months. And of course, BizDev, network, and everything else. On top of that, we own 50% of that incubator, and 2B Angels, our partners, are owning the rest 50%.
Okay.
You ask why we needed that? Because we wanted to have different buckets, different vehicles. One is a very structured, predefined vehicle. Explore, you know the amount, you know the terms, you know the structure of the deal in general. The other Plus can do whatever we think, however we want to do it. So it gives you flexibility from one end. On the other hand, you have some structured vehicle with a license from the government that leverage, 85% of the investment is leveraged by the government. So that gives you an advantage to take into the incubator risky ventures.
And just recently you announced a new VC called Home Run VC, which is focusing on a sport tech, sport technology. Can you speak about Home Run?
Yeah, so taking my background and experience in technology, and taking on the other hand the knowledge and my love for sports, I decided to merge between these two things. By the way, sports tech, it's everything that the utilization of technology in sports, fitness and wellness. And I've decided that it's about time to merge between these two. Sports tech, by the way, it's one of the fastest growing segments within investments, within VC investments. And I wanted to be the first one in Israel. So we are founding this, it's called Home Run Ventures. The chairman of the fund is Alex Giladi, who is, is a senior vice president of NBC Sports for the last 30 and something years. He's representing Israel in the Olympic Committee for the last 20 and something years. So he's the chairman. We have on board as advisors Yael Arad, the first Olympic medalist of Israel, Andy Ram, the only tennis Grand Slam winner of Israel, Oded Kata, Shomri Afek, and some sports executives like Erez Morag, who used to work 14 years for Nike. In his last position, I think he was head of Athlete Insights. Professor Miki Shainovich from the biomedical in Tel Aviv University, and some others. And on one hand, some of the challenges in sports tech are the same like in cyber and the same like in fintech. Okay, some are generic. On the other hand, there are some challenges that are relevant and specific to that industry. For example, if you're a cyber venture in Israel and you need a design partner or a client or alpha, you can go, there are 350 multinationals with R&D centers in Israel. So you just need to decide if you drive to Rothschild Street or to Herzliya Pituach or to Ramat HaChayal, and you have what you need. If you're a sports tech venture and you're looking for a partner like Nike or Barcelona Football Club or the NBA, they don't have an R&D office over here. So also being able to put you in touch with them, to build a network and to know what they are looking for, I think it's also
So Home Run will be the bridge for like the NBA or football clubs or soccer clubs around the world.
Yeah, soon we will also announce about some strategic partnerships from around the world. We have already from Israel, Maccabi Tel Aviv Basketball is a strategic partner, Maccabi Haifa Soccer, Channel 5, Sakuni Israel, Deloitte, the accountant, and I probably forgot someone.
Going back to having fun.
Holmes Place, yeah.
Going back to having fun, isn't it true that part of the thing is you're going to Barcelona, you're going to Barcelona soccer club. I mean, you're meeting everybody, going backstage probably. I mean, this is real fun. It's not just business.
For someone who appreciates and likes this, yes, I was just talking with a friend back there, and I was saying that I need to go for a meeting in Madrid in the next month. And I think it will happen the same day Atletico will host Real Madrid.
Oh.
And I think the guys that I need to meet, they can arrange some good tickets for that. So of course you combine, you try to do what you like and also to make profit out of that. But I really believe, now seriously talking about the potential of that, and also I think the industry in going into verticals, unless you're a very big fund and you have a partner for cyber and a partner for new media and a partner for fintech, it's difficult being a micro fund to know and understand everything about cyber security, big data, new media, commerce, fintech, Internet of Things, and these things. So having a vertical lets you know everything you need to know from A to Z, know all the competitors, know all the startups. I think by now I met most of the startups, the sports startups in Israel, and you can really have the knowledge, have the domain expertise, give them the support that is needed. So I think also going vertical, you can see now a lot of fintech funds, cyber funds, dedicated real estate funds, insurtech funds, and so on. And we will see continuation of this trend.
So there are a lot of people in this room came actually to hear more about sport tech and the industry. So what kind of technology are you looking for in that matter?
In general, I think that the first question for someone to ask should be why Israel should be good at sports tech,
Right. Do you think this is the space Israel can exceed?
Great. So you see? So look, we are not good, to be frank. We know we are not that good in sports. But we are very good in the underlying technologies that are very relevant for sports tech, like computer vision, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, wearables, a lot of deep learning, machine learning, these augmented reality, these are things that are very, very relevant to sports. And when I'm saying sports tech, from my point of view, a lot of things, everything from sports science, performance enhancement, injury prevention, recovery, nutrition, and of course new media, smart stadiums, fan engagement, esports, gear and equipment, a better, a safer helmet, a faster bicycle, it's high. So a lot of things are into that field. Fitness, of course, wellness. So I think Israel would be also good in all of these things, but we need to do it just starting these days, and I want to help the entrepreneurs, the relevant entrepreneurs, with their first steps. By the way, we have some knowledge. I don't know if you're about to ask me about that as well, but from Plus Ventures, my current fund, we invested in a company called WSE Sports, which deals in sports tech. They have a technology that can understand what is going on in a sports video live and can produce video clips according to predefined conditions, terms. And for example, they are working with the NBA. All the video clips of the NBA that you see on social networks are created by their machine. Last year, I think they created 120,000 video clips for the NBA. They recently raised $12 million, led by Intel Capital. And there's another company that we recently invested called InSounds, also in sports tech.
I spoke with the guys from InSounds actually last night, I think. It's about, they're like listening to what really happens on the field, which is very interesting. It's like another layer of information about what happening.
They can put microphones in the stadium, and with their technology, with their algorithms, they can isolate the sounds and they can listen to every player, to the coach, even during the timeout where all the music is played and everything. They can listen to everything. And they found out they can also listen, which is interesting for the broadcasters. They can bring you the real sound of the kick, of the bounce of the ball, of everything that is going on the field. So this is, again, another thing that they can bring into life for the viewers. It's still in early stages. Currently, right. It's doing several pilots, and hopefully it will be a successful one.
You told me, in a meeting that the word of, like, it's like the virtual world of sport. Like there are virtual soccer clubs and all of that, and gaming. It's a huge word and it's growing.
You're talking about esports, yeah.
Esports, right. Yeah.
Esports is esports, you know what's esports? Esports is competitive video gaming, playing multiplayers competitive video gaming. That's in general the definition. It's FIFA, it's like playing FIFA, but it's more of strategy games like Dota, League of Legends, these things. It's really booming. You know, more than 150 million people last year in the United States view esports. It's being streamed. You know, Twitch is the leading channel that you can watch, and you can actually see live games. And today you have professional players, you have the whole ecosystem, you have trainers, you have physiotherapists, you have even a problem of drugs. You know, people need to stay very calm, very concentrated during hours. You can get today a scholarship in university in the States to play esports. And recently, you know, Manchester City, Ajax, some other teams signed players to play FIFA, their team. 5 years time from now, you will see Barcelona, Super Clásico, Barcelona versus Real Madrid, officially played by players online, with merchandise, with broadcasting rights, with everything, with commercials.
And it's going to be huge. It's already huge.
It's going to be huge. By the way, the players are called cyber athletes.
Cyber athletes.
That's the name that they are called, yeah.
It's amazing, actually. So
it's the real revenge of the geeks, you know, being now the best athletes in sports.
Do you have already someone in Israel? I mean, did you find this technology in Israel already?
There are several companies, I would say 4 to 5 companies in Israel that are dealing with the esports. It's a very technology sport.
Right.
And it's, you know, it has also no boundaries. Anybody can sit in Guatemala and watch a game that's being played in Tel Aviv online. You know, there was the final, I don't remember if the final was Dota or League of Legends, but the final, you know how many people watched it online? Anybody has a guess?
Guess?
36 million people watched it online. It's more people more than the people that watched the 7th game last year on the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers versus Golden State Warriors.
Amazing. Yossi, we spoke a lot about like your career. I mean, what you do and the ventures, and we spoke about we had some success stories, but along the way you had some failures as well, like we all do. But I want to take two notes and speak a little bit about these. You're one of the people that the founders of Waze approached in the beginning, and you decided not to invest in Waze in the early days. What would you do today, knowing like the knowledge and the experience you had today? Would you invest in Waze?
I thought there would be at least one interview that I wouldn't be asked about that, but okay. I will. First of all, I think it was a mistake. No, not investing in Waze. It was around 2007 or 8. They came to us. Back then, they wanted to raise, if not mistaken, $500,000 at a valuation of $2 or $2.5 million. I really liked the product, you know. Until then, we had just a stupid GPS that will tell you that it takes 25 minutes to drive from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, but that's relevant if you would drive at 2 o'clock midnight. But if you drive at 7 o'clock in the morning, it will take you an hour and a half. So I was really impressed from the idea that you will know what is happening down the road and it will calculate the real time. We had back then 2 problems, and take into account what happened, 2007 and 2008, the industry was down. We asked for 2 things. First of all, it was the first days of the data on the phones. So we said, okay, in order for you to transmit your position, you need to activate the data for, if it would take you 45 minutes to reach your office, so you need to activate the data for 45 minutes on your phone, and it will cost a fortune. Nobody would like to do that. And they said, okay, you're right, but don't think about it now. Think down the road. It will become something that anyone can afford. And they were right. The second thing that was the main thing was the business model. Back then, nobody wanted to hear about clicks, about eyeballs, about things like that. We wanted to understand how the business can make money. And Waze, it's a very heavy technology company. And they said, we will make money from putting the small logos of Bank Hapoalim and Aroma Cafe and some petrol stations along the way. And I said, okay, that's nice, but you cannot run a company like that from that. And actually, they really couldn't run it from this, but it's not their problem anymore. They sold the company. They did a great execution. It was a great idea with a great team. But if I try to think about it again and again, it's not something that I say to myself, I was so stupid, I needed to invest. Being in my position, we will invest in things and lose money. We will not invest in things and they will succeed. That's the way it works. My father, by the way, told me, among a lot of things that he told me, to cry about money that I invested and lost, not about money I didn't invest and didn't make an exit from that. So that's a sad story from my point of view, but it's a great story for the industry.
Yeah, and this happens, of course, for everybody who's doing investment. Another story is I read somewhere that you also invested in Under Me, which is a startup owned by Bar Rafaeli. Is it correct?
I don't think it's worth the time discussing about it.
Right. So the question was, because I wrote down, how was it to work with a non-technology startup? I mean, it's a non-technology startup.
I wouldn't say it's a non, but it's almost no technology. It's a venture that we did. It's not a typical investment. I think we invested $50,000. Mm-hmm. We weren't involved. I'm not saying that because the venture failed, because it's not in our line of business. Right. A friend offered us to invest, and we thought with $15,000 it's worth the risk. And very fast they didn't deliver, I would say. Both all the people that were involved in the venture, both Bar and the CEO.
Okay, so this is the time for us.
Ask me about something that did succeed.
Yes, in a second. So this is the time for you if you want to ask some questions, Yossi. Anyone? Shai?
Yes.
1 second, Shai.
Recently, Jack Ma from Alibaba in China said that within 30 years, robots might make better CEOs than humans. How do you feel about that, dealing with CEOs? And if you follow that logic, what's the time frame for replacing VCs with, say, a smartwatch?
First of all, it's a good question. You should ask him, I don't know, to evaluate something. I don't know to evaluate what will happen in 10 years. So 30 years, it's really challenging. It will be very difficult to replace CEOs, not in terms of, in terms of the personality of the character, also for myself, the main and the most important thing when I decide to invest, not only me, I think every professional investor, in order for us to invest, there are 3 things: the team, the venture, and the deal. The deal itself. The team is, I cannot express how much more important the team is from all the others, all the rest. the main thing that we check about the team, before their expertise, their knowledge, their background, is their character. You know, how transparent they are, how open to feedback they are, how humble they are, how honest they are, how nice they are. Because at the end of the day, doesn't matter the terms of the agreement and what we write. You know, we work with people. We put our money in their hands, and we want to put it in the hands of people that we trust. Maybe it will succeed. Probably it wouldn't succeed. You know, we invest at a very early stage. More ventures wouldn't succeed than ventures that would succeed, and it's very important to us to put the money in the hands of people we trust, we love. You know, maybe it's worth to say, investing is not about, it's not a transaction. It's not something that you do out of your, you know, you sit with an Excel, right. You put the numbers, you calculate, you end up with an outcome, and then you decide yes or no. It's much more of a relationship than a transaction. In general, you need to fall in love with the entrepreneur or with the team. You need to fall in love to want to get, if we take it, you want to get married with him and go together to that adventure. And this is maybe something very important for entrepreneurs to know. You need to make chemistry with the investor. You need to make him want to be your partner. And this is something that entrepreneurs sometimes forget. It's not all about numbers, about technologies, about, you know, we don't know what will happen and you don't know what will happen. The people are the most important thing. And you know, one thing about it, that the team or the entrepreneur, he doesn't see any risk in the team. He never sees a risk in the team. And I can tell you that in the past, in the far past, there were times when he saw a brilliant idea with an average team, and we were tempted to invest, and always it was, at the end of the day, a failure. Today, we are almost the opposite. If we see a great team or a great entrepreneur with an idea that is an average idea, not the smartest, we will invest. We want to be his partners. Anyway, the road will change, the product will change, the competition will change, the market, the pricing. The entrepreneur is the most important thing, and your job is to convince us that we want to work with you, and you are the right type for that.
So robotic will not replace CEOs so soon, and the team is everything. Yeah, join me here because of the echo. Come.
Hi, well, I actually want to ask about your success story. You spoke about people, you spoke about business. I want to ask about a product or an idea that you invested in that disrupted the market, that excited you the most.
I know the answer.
What is the answer?
Starting with why? No?
Yes.
So
I wouldn't say that it's not the one that excites me the most, because, you know, we have a lot of kids in our portfolio, so we love them all and we are excited from their all. I will give an example that I think is a good example. Yotpo, a company that we were the first investors, again, entrepreneurs. They came to us at the age, it's Tomer Tagrin and Omri. I think they came to us right after finishing the academy, if I'm not mistaken, from Tel Aviv University. I was the chief mentor of the startup, the entrepreneurship program of Tel Aviv University, and they came through that, and we met them. They were really young kids with not a lot of experience, but they were exactly the type of entrepreneurs that we were looking for. This is the first thing. The second, you asked about disruption. They came with the idea to disrupt the industry of reviews. You have reviews about products, about services on the internet. Back then, there was you could read reviews in eBay, you could read reviews on Amazon, but all the rest of the hundreds of thousands of websites, the small to medium ones, they didn't have any platform for reviews. So they came with the idea, first of all, let's create a platform for them that you can drag and drop into your website. Second, assuming that you will have a platform, you know, people don't like to write reviews. More than 1% of the people write reviews, bad or good. By the way, reviews take up the sales. That's the most important thing to know. If you have reviews in your website, you will sell more. That's the starting point. So they came with a platform that you can drag, but still, if you have a review and a platform and it doesn't have any reviews in it, it doesn't help you. So they know also to take the reviews from their channel. Today, you know what's amazing? First of all, they are great entrepreneurs. They raise a lot of tens of hundreds of millions of dollars by today from really great investors, and they still remember their first investor, and they remain humble, they remain focused, they remain very open to feedback, although, at the end of the day, it was the same from the first day. They always come to consult with you to hear everybody's idea or opinion. At the end of the day, they decide what to do, but really they share with you and they like to hear what you have to do. And maybe it's I'm not sure if it's the only company, but it's a great example of a company that the product, right, the idea that they came to me with at the presentation and the product is the same. Nothing have changed. What they said that they want that will be the product, that's the product today.
They follow the vision right from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, they produce, they have hundreds of millions of websites using their platform. They are creating more reviews today than eBay and Amazon together. They are the biggest platform for reviews on the web. And they also added to that the social layer, because reading a review from a 12 years old kid from China versus a review from your neighbor from Tel Aviv, that works at the same company and has a similar background, so you need to give it a different value. So they know also to calculate the relevancy of the one who gave the review to you.
More questions? Avi.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Avi. How do you calculate a company's evaluation?
Hi, that's a good question.
Tada. How to calculate evaluation?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, there's no secret sauce, okay? There's no one way to say this is the way you calculate early stage startups. You cannot use any of the traditional formulas. Discounted cash flow is not relevant. All the rest of the comparables that sometimes you use on the regular market to compare between companies, it's very difficult to compare early stage startups, which is just an idea and a piece of paper, to something else. So there's no formula to do that. The audit, the reports are not relevant. Usually they don't have any financial reports. So I would say it's more art than science. It's not taking, numbers and trying to aggregate them. It's something that you learn from experience. So, you take into account the stage of the company, the opportunity, how much money it will take, the background of the entrepreneurs, the capital intensity of the venture, how far are they from revenues, what might be the relevant exit or the size of the market. A lot of things that you try to aggregate. At the end of the day, there are some guidelines. Startup coming just with an idea, I would say, with a piece of paper, an idea, and a team would be up to $1 million. I'm talking about Israeli valuations. Valuations in Silicon Valley are higher. A startup that is already starting to produce something would be, and here it varies, from between the range, I would say, $1 million to $3 million. Of course, on the competition on the deal, on the specific market that they are coming. It also depends on the relevant investor. The valuation for me might be different from the valuation for an angel and different for valuation for a corporate VC. For example, corporate VC is less interested in the valuation. They don't invest, and it wouldn't make a change for them if the valuation is $2 million or $3 million. They want to be involved in the company. They want to have a visibility into the technology, into the product. So the valuation is relevant, but less. For us as investors, if I invest at a company, sometimes people tell me, what does it matter if the company will be sold at $100 million valuation? So what does it matter if you enter at a $2 million valuation or a $3 million valuation? If that's the only venture that I will invest, you're right. But since I'm building a portfolio that I'm trying to be diverse, So if I invest in $2 million or $3 million, the end result for the whole fund will be dramatically different. So it's very important. I will say something on top of that from my experience. So beware not to raise a small amount of money at too high valuation, because it might cause trouble down the road. For example, I see some entrepreneurs that raised money from their accountant, from their friend, from their uncle, doesn't matter who, somebody who doesn't know to evaluate, and he mainly believes in the guy and he invests in the guy, and he invests $50,000, and the entrepreneur says, great, the valuation would be $2 million, and he said, I just gave a very, very small chunk of the company at a $2 million valuation. And then he comes to me 1 year later down the road, and he wants to raise $500,000, and I examined the venture, and I said, okay, I want to invest. What is the valuation? And he says the valuation is $4 million. And I say, how come $4 million? It doesn't worth $2 million. He said, yeah, but 1 year ago I raised $50,000 when it was just an idea. How can I come back now to my early investor and tell him, now another investor wants to invest at a $2 million valuation. So try to don't take small amounts of money. Do take small amounts, but don't put a too challenging valuation to that, okay? And at the end of the day, one thing to add, valuation is not that important for you. It might be important for the investor. At the end of the day, the success is not caused by the valuation. And I can tell you down the road, if we need you to be happy. You wake up in the morning and work in the company, and you are the ones that will make the company success or failure. So we need to make sure you have an incentive. So even if down the road you will get diluted, and we think that your incentive is not high enough, we know to compensate you. Nobody will compensate the early stage investor down the road. But when there's a big check coming, and the new investor is not interested in my part of the company, he's interested to make sure that the entrepreneurs have enough incentive. So they will make sure that you will get more ESOP or more shares to make you happy all the time. Trust me, that's the way it works. So it's less relevant evaluation at the early stage. It's much more relevant and important to raise the money, because raising money makes your venture gives you a better chance.
Yossi, does it important who you raise money from?
Of course, there are investors. By the way, investors vary and differs. And even investors in the same category, let's say I'm a macro fund, you can come to me with a venture. My answer would be different than another VC answer. Everybody has his own criteria, his own formula, his own expectations, depending on who's are his investors in the fund, depending on what is his target IRR, what is his horizon, because there are investors that are interested in, they want to exit with 1 to 2 years, and there are other investors that are looking for 10 years investment. So everything differs between investors and, of course, between type of investors. So first of all, the valuation may vary. And the second, getting a no or rejection from one investor doesn't mean that you will get it from another investor. So first of all, don't get insulted if you get rejected. The odds are against you. Most of the companies wouldn't succeed to raise money. And second, try to tailor the right offer to the right investor. And even the presentation, it's not the same presentation that you do to an angel that is a diamond dealer or real estate entrepreneur, to the presentation that you do to a VC, to the presentation that you do to a corporate VC, to the presentation you do to your next executive, to the presentation that you do to your banker, to the presentation you do to your accountant. So you need to tailor the right thing for the right investor, and to also, sometimes people ask me about presentation, what should I start with in the presentation? Should I start with the team? Should I start with the technology? Should I start with the market? Should I start with the problem? Start with the best thing that you have. If the team is something exceptional, start with the team. If you have an algorithm that is mind-blowing, start with the algorithm. Start with your best, okay? Because anyway, our people tend to listen for 5 to 7 minutes, and then either they say, okay, it's very interesting, I want to hear more, or they say, okay, let's think about my next meeting and what I'm doing tonight. It's almost the same thing about a date. When you're dating a guy or a girl, usually after 5 minutes, you're saying, wow, it's a very interesting potential date, or how the hell do I get home as fast as I can? So it's almost the same in investments.
Okay, thank you. It's a good insights. Okay, let's take 2 more.
Thank you. My name is Boris Neratin from Frankfurt, Germany. I have more of a general question. So your day obviously also has 24 hours. How do you structure your day? How do you set priorities, and what tools and hacks do you use to actually get your job done?
How do I set priorities talking about my work, my work schedule? Wow, it's a very challenging thing to do. You know, we have more than 35 portfolio companies. Some are 2 months old, some are 4 years old, and it really varies. Like in the entrepreneur calendar, sometimes he needs to work days and nights, and sometimes we can take a day off. But in general, it usually varies, and we usually run between the imminent thing to the strategic thing. So there are companies that we need to handle, and to tomorrow to take the decision whether we go to that market, or whether we replace a key employee or things like that, and you cannot postpone it. And there are companies that usually the more grown one, the more mature one, that you can say, we will have in 2 weeks' time a strategic meeting about where we want to be in 3 years' time. So this is one thing. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of money in Israel. We have the highest, VC capital per person in the world, more than 2 times than the United States, which is the second. So there's a lot of money. And let me tell you a secret. We need you as much as you need us. We are looking constantly for good ventures to invest because we have money and we need to deploy it. So we are looking for you. And I'm saying this in correlation to what you mentioned, because if we see something interesting, then we need to move fast. And this can also change the whole schedule of ours. So sometimes, I would see, or one of my partners would see something interesting, and then we have a rule in Plus Ventures, within 48 hours, all the rest of the teams needs to see him. Doesn't matter the schedule, doesn't matter what you have to do, because it might not remain on the table and be relevant. So there are things that you must do and be very flexible. And we don't have, fortunately, board of directors in the United States or an investment committee that takes me 2 weeks to gather together. So we can take decision. You asked about how we can invest.
Exactly.
So we can move very quickly and very fast. So it gives us some advantages. So this is one thing, but it's a very demanding job. It's a very stressful job. I enjoy it, but yes, it's not for everyone to do. It's an entrepreneurship. If you want to hear the whole story, we need to raise money for our funds. So we need to present to investors and to convince them to invest in us. Then we need to find good companies to invest. Then we read about companies that succeeded, that didn't reach our deal flow. Then we read about companies that we rejected ways and made a lot of money. And then we have our own portfolio companies and companies that failed. So it's a challenging job, and you want all the time to improve. And at the end of the day, for good and bad, you are working with people. You are not working with robots. You are not working with machines. You work with people, and people, they are different. They are not 2 similar entrepreneurs that I can tell you that I have in my portfolio. So it's a lot of attention. You need to give them time. You need to give them ability to express themselves. You need to take sometimes hard decisions together with them. Sometimes they like it. Sometimes they like it less. So it's a challenging job. It's a very interesting one. Take into account we get more than 1,000 applications a year. We meet with more than 400 ventures a year. Luckily, I don't meet 400. I meet 200. But again, almost every day, I see something new, interesting, some people sitting with an interesting idea. So it's very interesting, and we get to see things that will be relevant in 2-3 years' time to the mass. So it's interesting, it's demanding, and you really have all the time to struggle with your schedule. We have so many conventions, events, meetups, and you need to decide how much you can afford. It's part of your work. It's part of your branding. It's part of your knowing the interest in getting a visibility to entrepreneurs and letting them meet you and things like that. So you need to all the time to make sure you're not wasting too much time at places.
Okay, great questions. I'm going to go for the last one. Sorry again from this side. For this.
And the winner is... some investors prefer to be referred to the startup by a third party, and some really don't care. Where do you stand on that?
Okay. So, of course, referral is also better. Take into account that we have, a pile of a lot of ventures. If somebody that I trust and I know tells me, look, I met someone, you should meet him, we will give it, a better place because we don't want to lose it and we have some recommendation about it. So it's better to come to us via someone that we trust or that we know. But it wouldn't affect, if you send your cold email to our website, to Plus website, to Explore website, we will look at it, we will read it, and if we find it interesting enough, we will invite you. So we wouldn't miss on something because, we just sent us a cold mail, but it would be better if we get it from a friend, from a co-investor. We cooperate with a lot of the co-investors in Israel, the other ones. So it's better to come via a recommendation or referral, but it's not a condition. By the way, if I might say, if you want to send your venture cold mail to a VC, it's very easy. Each VC or professional investor, they have their own website. Don't enter the website and start sending to all the partners in the fund. It's a waste of time. Try to figure out who might be the relevant one from the track record, from the portfolio that he handles, and see, and if so, send it to this specific guy.
And write a specific email which is very specific for them.
Yeah, and try to send us something that is structured enough, that is baked enough. Because it's very easy, not because that we are not that smart, you are smarter than us, but we are very experienced. And I can tell you, 16 years or 17 years of investment, I've met, we just recently calculated, more than 3,500 startups. Yeah. And you get the feeling and you get the experience. And when somebody sends you something that is not baked enough, that is not cooked enough, that is not structured enough, you can learn a lot about the person himself. He's not working, turning everything that is needed. He didn't make his homework. He's not ready to meet you, and he's doing things when he's not prepared. So, and we usually don't have a second chance. If we see it, we read something, it doesn't look interesting, we move it. We'll write you an email, thanks for your mail. We find it not relevant for us. We wish you luck. So make sure when you send us something, don't send us something that is just an idea that you started. We tell you that we don't have time to sit with entrepreneurs all day and try to develop ideas with them. We need you to come as baked as you can with something that will be tangible enough and understood enough that we can evaluate. We can, of course, help you develop. We can, of course, help you bring some more people or knowledge to the team, but we need it to be interesting enough for us. And it's very, very, very easy for us to read something and to say, this is something that it's just an idea, a general idea. It's not worth to invite the guy for a meeting. On the other hand, it's very easy to see something that is really, professional, and you say, this guy, I want to meet him. Even if I don't find the idea that exciting, it looks to me that he knows what he's doing. He knows how to approach, because the way he approaches me, it will be the way that he will approach the guy that he's trying to recruit, and it will be the same way he will approach the next investor, and it will be the same way that he will approach the first client. So it's very important for us to understand it. By the way, each time that we meet someone, and we think, okay, it might be investor, the first thing that I try to imagine, how would he look when he sits in 12 years' time in front of the next investor? What would the investor think about him? This is what I'm thinking in the first meeting, and trying to imagine that. And if I think he wouldn't be able to stand in 12 months in front of, the giant, the big VCs, we wouldn't invest.
So what the best way for people in this room to approach Plus Ventures? Would it be through your website? You have like a form or something?
You can enter the website and you can send it. You can ask for me for my address later on. You can do it via anyone that you know that knows us, and we will try to give you our best answer. By the way, another recommendation: don't ask for an answer at the end of the meeting. Okay? Some of the entrepreneurs do. You know, I used to participate in a TV show called The Sharks in Israel. It's called The Dragon's Den. So, you know, over there we would see people, entrepreneurs, ideas, and we will need to give them on the spot our verdict, okay? It doesn't work this way in the real life. So if you come to us, I know it's very human that you want to get feedback. I also want to get feedback as soon as I can, but be patient. When you finish the presentation, don't ask how was it, don't ask are you interested. Sometimes you can feel it from the way the investor talks with you, from the way the meeting is going, from the length of the meeting, by the way, the questions that the investor or the things that the investor says at the end of the meeting usually are much more important than the things that he said you in the first 5 minutes, because then it was more of a guess or trying to see how you react. At the end of the day, usually we would say things that are more crucial for you, but don't ask for our opinion. Try and wait for the answer. You know, we and most of the professional investors, we try to come back to each and every entrepreneur that we met. And
okay, Yossi, these are really good tips. Just before ending, I have like 2 more things I want to ask you. First one is about social involvement, and I know you're involved in some non-profit organization. Is it like something you want to try and promote through this meeting, through us? Like in Israel?
I think, the main thing that someone is doing something social is at the end of the day not just for the community but for himself, and it makes me very proud. Taking part. I'm a board member in a larger than life non-profit organization, Gdolim Me'achaim in Israel, for many years, and it's an amazing organization. I'm a board member. I'm actually the chairman of the Friends of Let the Animals Live, תנו לחיות לחיות. I'm a board member of the Friends of the Technion, and I'm a board member in an organization not a lot of people know, but it's the Duke of Edinburgh International, how it's called, International Youth Awards, the Israeli branch. It's an organization in 140 countries, also operates in Israel. So these are things that takes me a lot of time and a lot of effort, and usually I feel that I didn't do enough for that. But it's very difficult for me to refuse or reject. These are things that are close to my heart. I like animals, so that's let the animals live, and we need someone to be their mouth to represent them.
You actually told me that you didn't invest in one specific startup, which was a bit moralic problem for you, which was about animals, I think.
I didn't invest. I don't want to name the startup, but there's an interesting startup in the sports tech arena that has, I think, a good potential, but I cannot invest since it's not more from the point of view that I see it. So all of these organizations are trying to help them and promote. Cancer, for example, a larger than life amazing organization. My mother died when I was younger from cancer, so this is again something that close to my heart, so I'm trying to help them as much as I can. And I think what we get back is not less than what we give. And also, it's not the same, but being involved in sports and donating to sports club, it's also sort of a donation, although it's much more important to donate to kids with cancer or to animals that suffer than to the next Eran Zahavi, which I adore and admire, and he used to play for me in Ramat HaSharon when he was just 19 years old.
Last question, it's the same question we ask every event. Each guest we have is what we call the Peter Pan question. What would you want to do when you grow up?
Wow. I still don't know. I think I would want to go back to being a startupist, to having a startup, And after that, to do something with sports, but being deeply, heavily involved, doing something with sports, maybe with technology and sports, and mainly to try to develop the sports ecosystem in Israel. Because, the pyramid, in order to have professional athletes and achieve, achievements, you need to have the pyramid, the ground. You need to have a lot of sports, a lot of athletes, a lot of people. And today, in school, like the sport lesson in school is about take a ball and play. I have some examples from countries around the world. It's almost the opposite. So I think there's a lot of things to be done in the sports education in Israel, and hopefully I will do that in 10 years' time, something like that.
Okay. Yossi, thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
תודה רבה לכולם.
היה מעולה.